A star fell from the sky over Coast City that night, except it wasn't a star at all. Down in that same city lived a man named Hal Jordan, a test pilot who flew faster and took more risks than anyone at Ferris Aircraft dared to. What Hal really wanted was simple: to feel alive at full throttle. What haunted him was just as simple. His father, Martin Jordan, had died in a test flight when Hal was still a boy, and Hal had spent his whole life chasing the sky that took him. That recklessness made him brilliant in the cockpit and impossible everywhere else. Just that afternoon, he'd pushed an experimental jet past every safety limit Ferris Aircraft had, nearly crashing it into the runway to prove he could handle it. Waiting for him at home was his older brother, Jack Jordan, who had practically raised Hal after their father's death and had spent years begging him to slow down before the sky took him too. And back at the hangar was the one person with real power over Hal's future: Carol Ferris, the sharp, no-nonsense heiress who now ran her father's company, and the woman Hal had once loved before his stunts pushed her away. Carol had covered for Hal's recklessness more times than she could count, but this stunt was the one she couldn't ignore. She suspended him on the spot, telling him flatly that talent wasn't the same thing as being trustworthy. Grounded, humiliated, and alone that night, Hal did what he always did when the walls closed in. He got in his car and drove, with no destination in mind at all. On the radio, a report crackled through about strange lights seen falling over the desert that same night. Something in Hal, the same hunger that had gotten him grounded, pulled him straight toward it. He followed that glow far out into the desert until his headlights found something no test pilot had ever seen before: a wrecked ship, unlike anything built on Earth, half buried and still smoking in the sand. Inside the wreckage, barely alive, was a red-skinned figure in strange armor, an alien named Abin Sur, who had crossed the stars as a peacekeeper for something called the Green Lantern Corps. With his last strength, Abin Sur explained that his ring chose its bearer by will alone, and that it had already reached out across the desert searching for someone honest enough and fearless enough to carry it next. He tried to warn Hal of one more thing: that something had chased him across the galaxy, something that killed worlds, and that it might follow the ring's light all the way to Earth. But before he could finish, Abin Sur's eyes closed for the last time. The ring had chosen. The moment it touched his finger, green fire wrapped around Hal's whole body, and a voice that seemed to come from everywhere at once declared him a Green Lantern of Sector 2814, Earth's sector, and now, somehow, his responsibility. Miles away, in a windowless command room, government analysts had already tracked the same crash on satellite. Colonel Vance Serrano, a black ops officer who answered to no one the public ever heard of, watched the readouts with cold interest. An alien ship meant alien technology, and alien technology meant a weapon. Hal drove home before dawn, shaken, saying nothing to anyone about what had happened in the desert. He told himself he'd figure it out alone. He wasn't ready to explain a dead alien and a ring he couldn't take off even if he wanted to. Alone in an empty field that night, curiosity got the better of fear. Hal willed the ring to work and found himself lifted into the air, streaking through the clouds faster than any jet he'd ever flown. By morning, local news was already reporting strange sightings of green light streaking over Coast City. Panic and fascination spread through the public in equal measure, and Colonel Serrano ordered a full manhunt for whoever, or whatever, was behind it. Soldiers combed the desert crash site for clues and found tire tracks leading back toward Coast City. tracks matching a car registered to one Hal Jordan, recently suspended test pilot. Serrano now had a name. That same week, a fire broke out at a downtown apartment block. Without even thinking, Hal used the ring to shape a giant hand of green light and pull families from the flames. His first act as a hero, seen by dozens of stunned witnesses. Jack noticed his brother had started disappearing at odd hours, coming home with a strange calm he'd never had before. Worried this was just another reckless phase, Jack finally confronted him at the kitchen table. Carol, too, had seen the footage of the green light saving lives downtown, and something about the timing, right after Hal's disappearance into the desert, made her suspect he was involved. Instead of turning him in, she found herself wanting to understand. Serrano's team finally connected the pieces. A suspended pilot, a desert crash, a green light that flew like nothing man-made ever had. He made his decision quietly. Hal Jordan would be captured, and whatever power he carried would belong to the government. That night, the ring pulled Hal into something he couldn't explain. A vision beyond the stars, of towering crystal spires rising from a distant world called Oa, home of the beings who had made the ring in the first place. There, a small, ancient being called a guardian spoke directly into Hal's mind. It explained that the ring was one of many, worn by protectors chosen across the galaxy, and that Abin Sur had died fleeing a horror called the Nightbringer, a force that had already devoured entire worlds and was now tracking the ring's light straight toward Earth. It was coming for Earth. When the vision released him, Hal woke, gasping in his own bed, the weight of it crushing him. He hadn't asked for any of this. He'd only wanted to fly, and now an entire planet's survival rested on a ring he barely understood. Before Hal could even process the warning, Serrano's soldiers struck. They stormed the Ferris aircraft hangar at night, believing Hal might be hiding there, catching Hal completely off guard in the middle of a routine visit. To keep the fight from spilling onto innocent people, Hal had no choice but to use the ring openly in front of the two people he'd been hiding it from. Jack and Carol, who had come to the hangar looking for him, watched in stunned silence as green light shielded them from gunfire. Once the soldiers retreated, the truth finally came out. Jack was terrified, but after everything he'd already lost, refused to lose his brother too. He chose to stand by him. Carol, ever practical, immediately started thinking about how Ferris Aircraft's resources could help protect him. But the danger Hal had been warned about wasn't waiting. Across Coast City, strange energy storms began flickering in the night sky, growing stronger by the hour. The unmistakable sign that something enormous was drawing near. Serrano, unaware of what was truly approaching, doubled down on his own plan. He ordered his engineers to reverse engineer fragments recovered from Abin Sur's wrecked ship into a weapon capable of bringing Hal down, convinced the real threat was the man in green, not the storm above him. The storms broke into something far worse. The Nightbringer itself, a colossal shape of cracked black stone and burning red eyes, tearing through the atmosphere above Coast City as buildings shook and sirens screamed below. No one else could stop it. Hal knew there was no time left for two separate wars. He flew straight to Serrano's forces first, not to fight them, but to make the colonel see the truth. That the real enemy was already here, and it would destroy them both if they kept fighting each other instead. For once, Serrano didn't argue. Whatever he thought of Hal, the thing tearing through the sky outside was clearly beyond anything his weapons could handle. He stood his forces down and, grudgingly, let Hal go. By the time Hal reached Coast City, the The Nightbringer was already tearing through the streets Jack and Carol had fled into, its shadowy tendrils crushing cars and buildings in its path. Hal dove straight into the fight, hurling every construct his willpower could shape. A wall of light, a battering ram, a cage of green fire. But the Nightbringer shrugged off each one, closing in on him without slowing at all. For a terrifying moment, the ring's light flickered and dimmed. Doubt crept in. What if he simply wasn't enough? What if this was a fight only meant for someone braver than a reckless pilot who'd never asked to be a hero? Then he saw them below, Jack shielding Carol from falling debris, still trusting him to come through. Hal remembered his father hadn't died because he was reckless. He'd died doing something he believed in. And Hal decided, right there, that he believed in this.